Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hello.
It's your president and your VP back once again with a brand new series starting today, as we've been talking about. It's the beginning of Chuck Norris month, aka Walker, Texas Rangeraury. And today's episode is a very special one. It's a very fun episode we got in store for you guys today. We're talking about Lone Wolf Macquade, the movie that inspired Walker Texas Ranger.
Oh yeah, hold on. Before I put this out here, turns out we can't actually live stream from the phone because apparently we don't fit the criteria or requirements for eligibility from YouTube. So
Probably got to have a certain amount of subscribers.
Probably.
Sorry, guys. But, hey, you can still tune in on that night, January 21st. After we get the show watched, we'll have the video up and for you guys immediately afterwards. How's that?
Yeah.
Sound fair? Sound fair.
Okay.
Okay, getting into the movie itself, Lone Wolf Macquade is a movie that premiered in April of 1983. It was produced for a budget of $5 million, and it grossed roughly $12.7 million worldwide.
Yeah, this movie stars the one, the only, Chuck Norris.
Yeah, it's also got David Carradine in it as pretty much the main bad guy in the whole film. Now, a special mention needs to be talked about Daniel Fishman, who plays Falcone, and you guys will understand when we get into this a little bit later. Yes. Awesome. That's all I'm going to say at the moment.
Yeah.
It was directed by Steve Carver, and the original idea for this film was that it was going to be based off of a real-life Texas Ranger who usually worked alone, and that's why the lone wolf persona. And they approached Chuck Norris to do it, and they wanted to dirty up his image a bit and have him grow a beard and drink beer on screen, which Chuck was actually pretty reluctant to do because he's pretty much known, actually, guys, as a family-friendly kind of guy. His image is very clean throughout the history of his career.
Yeah, and Lone Wolf Macquade was basically a complete 180 from the roles he used to do as a kung fu movie star, basically.
Now, it's also worth mentioning that this movie was originally rated R, but Chuck Norris and company were able to successfully appeal it and get it down to a PG by simply mentioning the fact that the character has to resort to violence because certain situations are thrust upon him.
Yeah, and parents, it is rated PG, so I would suggest that you check it out first before you let your kids watch it, because this is not your typical PG rated movie. Because one, there are multiple S-bombs in it, like The Sandlot. Two, there are two GD bombs in it. Three, there are two F-bombs in it. And four, there's multiple usage of a-hole. So,
yeah, it's not your typical PG movie, at least not what we think about when we talk about PG movies today. We're talking 80s PG, I guess. So for those of you out there who understand what 80s PG means, we're talking about other movies like Poltergeist, Gremlins, Raiders of the Lost Ark, several movies like that were actually PG.
Jaws.
That probably should not have been PG. But remember that the key phrase there is parental guidance, okay? So, as he said before, parents, screen the movie first. If you think it's appropriate for your children, then let them watch it. If you don't, hey, that's cool. Now, let's get into the plot of this, all right? Chuck Norris stars as Lone Wolf Macquade, and at the very beginning of this film, he is basically doing surveillance on what amounts to a Mexican arms ring.
Yeah, he's doing surveillance on. Actually, I think it was a horse.
Yeah, actually, it was a horse thieving ring.
Yeah.
And so he basically shoots everybody in sight.
Yeah. And then he arrests the main dude.
Yeah.
Who also killed a police officer.
Yeah.
So,
that happens.
That happens.
So then he is pretty much reprimanded by his captain, and he's forced to work with the police officer who he was able to save his life. This takes place in El Paso, Texas. So he has to work in conjunction with a Texas state police officer in the movie. So they get into some investigation work here, and they discover that there is an arms dealer out there, and it's basically run by the Mexican mafia.
Yeah. Who's the leader of this branch of the mafia, Falcone.
Who is simply awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, he is such a great addition to this movie.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh.
That evil laugh that he does.
Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later. So, he is doing some investigative work on that, and he then goes home. Well, not really home, but he goes to his ex-wife and his daughter's house, where he meets the boyfriend of his daughter, who happens to be a El Paso City police officer.
Yeah. Which then later on, after the main bad guy shows off his martial arts skills, and he challenges him and says, "How about a little wager?" And he says, "No, I never fight for money." So
yeah, that comes a little bit later. But backing up a bit, his daughter wants to go for a ride, so they end up going to what amounts to a horse riding competition, basically. And a truck backfires, and it causes the horse to get scared, and then starts galloping off. In which a Latina American woman is basically like her trainer in a way, but not really. She happens to be the partner of David Carradine's character, who we find out later, much later, she was forced into this partnership after he killed her husband. So, but she is very impressed by Chuck Norris, a.k.a. Lone Wolf Macquade's bravado and the way he's able to, stand up to people. So she essentially ditches David Carradine's character for Lone Wolf Macquade.
Yeah.
And this pretty much sends him into a jealous rage.
Yeah.
It really does.
The main character.
That's pretty much what this premise is. Now, of course, there is the Mexican Mafia arms dealing plot line here.
Yeah.
So.
But then afterwards, after he gets into that jealous rage, he then basically he shoots the daughter's boyfriend.
Yeah.
And then he basically drives the car that she's in off of a cliff, and she's very lucky to be alive because that car was basically crushed.
That's true too.
It was crushed.
So he understands that Falcone is part of the operation and basically the head. So he goes to Falcone, Lone Wolf Macquade does. And they have a conversation where he, in no certain terms, Falcone more or less gives up David Carradine's character. But take it away.
Okay. So, real quick, Falcone is a little person in a wheelchair.
A midget.
Yeah, a midget in a wheelchair. We never said we were politically correct on this channel, okay?
But for those of you out there who are vertically inclined, don't take any disrespect towards it. We're just poking fun at a movie character and not little people in general.
We even said this in our Dickie Roberts review with the whole joke. Remember the beginning joke?
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically kind of like empowering the vertically challenged. So.
Yeah, in a way. But
all right. Anyways, I'm gonna take over from here. So, anyways, he gives up the main bad guy, And then he, out of nowhere, goes behind a secret wall and says, "Your guest is not going to be living very soon."
And it's so great.
Yeah.
This whole film is so great. Guys out there, you're gonna love it.
By the way,
okay?
this was me and my dad's first time watching
Yeah.
Lone Wolf Macquade.
Yeah, we had an awesome time with this. So so because they had picked up a witness that kind of knew what was going on, and they basically in no certain terms had tortured this guy a little bit by like shooting a machine gun around him, which works. You know, it's the 80s, guys. We really can't do that these days, but it works in an 80s action film. And it's also worth pointing out that this is the movie that Chuck Norris really credits as being the one that helped launch his action movie career. So, fair warning, there is an N-bomb in this movie too, but it's said by a black person. He says,
Yeah.
I'm not an N-bomb, I'm not a token N-bomb.
Yeah. So yeah, fair warning about that. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, fair warning.
But it's kind of irrelevant. It really is.
It is. You know, but he's the FBI. He's part of the FBI, and then, you know, when they're about to take down the guns operation near the end of the movie, you know, the FBI screws it up because they were about to ambush them. The FBI screws it up and says, "This is the FBI. Put your guns down and put your hands up and surrender." Yeah.
Yeah, and then they just basically get slaughtered. But the three amigos, kind of can call them that.
Yeah.
That's what I'll refer them to as Lone Wolf Macquade's posse. You know, him and the African American and the Latino American cop. They team up and they basically. Oh, by the way, he's got like a supercharged Dodge, which is really awesome, truck that has NOS, guys. And
Nitro.
At one point, the bad guy, played by David Carradine, he orders his men to use a bulldozer to bury said truck with Macquade in it. And what does Macquade do? He's all busted up. He takes a sip of his beer. He pours it on his head. He spits it out of his mouth. He starts the ignition of the truck. He turns the NOS on. And he powers the truck out of the grave. It is one of the greatest things you're ever going to see.
Yeah,
I
agree. It was an awesome action scene, and then afterwards, you know, the three amigos, you know, they're all sitting down and they're all beaten up, and they take a sip of the beer that he was drinking, and then the African American FBI agent says, "Whose idea was this?"
Yeah, it's super fun. And it all of this leads up and escalates and
into a climactic scene because Lone Wolf Macquade's daughter gets kidnapped by the main bad guy.
Because the main bad guy really can't leave well enough alone, can he?
No.
He really can't. He just keeps poking the bear, so to speak. And what do we know about poking the bear, guys? If you poke the bear enough, it's going to bite back.
Yeah, and so afterwards, they basically take out what is essentially an arms deal Mexican mafia compound. And they basically, all three of them, slaughter every single one of them with guns and grenades and explosions and a freaking bazooka.
Yeah. Super fun action.
And what happens next afterwards, all of that, Chuck Norris, Jim Macquade, he basically takes the bulldozer that they used to bury him with, and he basically uses it as a shield from a machine gun fire, and then afterwards he then bulldozes basically a military jeep right into a building, and that sets up a climactic fight scene.
Which of course ends with 2 roundhouses to the face, putting the guy down. But the guy recovers and has basically a machine gun, and he ends up killing that Latina American that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and then you could basically see the anger in his eyes. The African American dude, he says, hey, Macquade tosses him a grenade, and then he tosses the grenade into the building, setting off this giant explosion to end the movie.
Oh, and also to illustrate just how evil these guys are, they killed Lone Wolf Macquade's, well, wolf dog.
Yeah, I think it was more of a husky, but yeah.
So to really illustrate how evil these people are, they killed basically a dog in the movie.
Yeah.
So, but with all that out of the way, I'll also say, is Chuck Norris the greatest actor of all time? No, he's not. But is he a really good action star? Yeah, he actually is. You know, you're never going to see him in a drama per se, but in a film like this, oh yeah, top-notch stuff.
Yeah. I give this film 5 Chuck Norris's throwing grenades out of 5. What say you, Dad?
I give it 5 stars out of 5, of course. You know, if you're looking for a real fun action film that's going to make you laugh and have a good time, if you're an adult out there, you might be able to drink a beer or take a shot of whiskey too, you know, have a good time with. As we said, it's probably not suitable for kids under the age of 13. But for those of you over 13, you might have a really, really great time with this.
Yeah, like I did.
Now, as always, of course, if you think that Lone Wolf Macquade is the absolute worst action film of all time, well, you're wrong. But it is your opinion. And hey, just remember, as always, we're just two idiots with a cell phone camera. Our opinions do not matter, except they actually do, because we have a YouTube show, except they actually don't. So, having said that, this is our segue, and tune in next time where we're probably going to do another Chuck Norris movie, or possibly the Friday the 13th reboot that we had talked about, getting a Jared Padalecki movie out of the way, because we are leading up to that.
Yeah.
So, tune in next time for that, guys. And until then, peace and love from Denny and Son. Bye!